Now, at that time, I had been at a lunch in Canada to celebrate the fact that the Governor General, Mr. Crow, had been released from, he was kidnapped for a long time. And I was sitting close enough to him to say to Mr. Crow, what does a man have to do to get a knighthood? To be ennobled by the Queen? What do you think? I said, well, Colin Chapman's won the World Championship several times, so every time a British car is sold in North America, there's a little bit of a rub-off from the World Championship, and we did happen to come to Indianapolis and won that as well. And we do an enormous lot for a small company, export efforts. You know, what do we have to do? And he said, I'll make a note of that. When I got back to England, Basil Cardew, the chairman of the Guild of Motoring Writers, asked me to have lunch with him. Lunch with him was 6 bottles of Matthias and a packet of crisps. The main thing was that he said, I have been asked to put forward a reason as to why Colin Chapman should have a knighthood. What should I write? Well, he couldn't have written anything at that time, so I wrote it to him, wrote it for him. Then the Society of Motor Manufacturers came.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders invited me out to lunch, quails, eggs, good quality wines, you name it, everything else. I thought, what's going on here? And they said, Mr. Arnold, we are of a mind to recommend Mr. Chapman for a knighthood, but you are attacking the London Motor Show. You are bringing the London Motor Show into disrepute, because I was running a campaign called Modernise the Motor Show. I would come to a motor show out here, it was all razzmatazz and dancing and presentations, lights, dry ice, the whole lot. The London Motor Show, I actually went into press and saying it stank of onions, hamburgers and urine. So there were so insufficient toilets when we used to go behind the trains and stand. It was that bad. And I wrote an article for Car Magazine called I Bought the Motor Show, on how I mythologically bought the motor show and jazzed it up to be as good as the foreign ones. And they didn't like this. I'd also included putting everything on the Lotus stand that year in Union Jack style. Union Jack jackets, Union Jack, everything was Union Jack. And we played Land of Hope and Glory, which makes every Englishman cry. And we played Land of Hope and Glory because we've got Porsche on one side and Alfa Romeo on the other. So we were suddenly, the organisers of the motor show came along and said, Mr. Arnold, would you stop playing that music? It's not allowed in the regulations. So I said, no, I won't, like a little boy. No, I won't. Well, why not? I said, well, chuck us out, we want to be thrown out. We get more publicity being thrown out of the London Motor Show a British national tune where we're stuck between Porsche and Alfa Romeo, and I can't wait to be on television tomorrow night is the wide we're throwing. Would you turn it down? So we had used the motor show another year. We filled the cars. Please, by the way, feel free to go whenever you want to, because I'll stay all night. We have filled the motor show cars with enormous teddy bears and things from a big shop in London called Hamleys. I'm talking about a 6-foot teddy bear sitting in a 7. And they had a television programme that night with Sir Donald Stokes, who in those days was head of almost every British car manufacturer that since Club Road, and David Brown from Aston Martin, and me sitting behind the teddy bear with a big Lotus badge on it. So therefore, whenever they interview, they always ask the teddy bear his opinion. So we Lotus, once again, got a motor show joke onto national television, much to the annoyance of the SMD. So they said, Mr. Arnold, unless you stop all this carping at the motor show, then quite frankly, we're not going to recommend Mr. Chapman for a knighthood. So I said, I'll stop straight away, that's it, finished. And that was that. But the fact was that Colin didn't get a knighthood, and I'm sure some of you have read in history why. If you're in for a knighthood and you come to America and hit a policeman, that's all right. But if you're in for a knighthood and you go to a country that's got a king or queen and hit a policeman, then it's somebody with a royal commission and you don't get your knighthood. And they decided not to give Colin a knighthood. They did give him a CBE, which is about as good as it gets. And he collected a lot of other awards over his years. But the fact still remains that Colin in my opinion, should have had a knighthood, but they also said young people like that have a nasty habit of going bad later. So perhaps somebody knew something. But when I finally got to the end of my tether, I got fired. Now, when you have tried everything and done everything you know, when you have tried to buck the situation where 93% of your customers, you try everything and eventually you empty your locker, and that is the time. It's like a football club manager. Eventually he gets on a losing streak and they sack him. He joins another club and he's right back up. So we had a thundering great rowdy board meeting where Colin came in and basically he wanted, I believe, to do some sort of debenture issue on the stock exchange, based on the fact that we will say we could sell twice as many cars as last year. I wasn't prepared to do it, but there was a lot more to it than that. And he was probably right to get rid of me, or he should have maybe put me to another job. Fact remains, I got fired, off I went, had a jolly good few years working with other clients for more money. And I'm going to call this a de Gaulle syndrome. If you know you can do a good job, and you get fired when you feel you should have invested, you always sit back and wait for the phone to ring. And the phone did ring, and the conversation was, whatever you did before, come back and do it again, and can you do it quicker? And I got back, but the first thing I said was, I was working for a property company that also built a lovely race car called the Lotus, and I was having a lot of fun with this company. It was very enjoyable, and Margaret was secretary to the managing director. And we worked on several promotions because we also ran a helicopter company. And I found at that time that if you sat down with Margaret, it worked out what was going to be done, it got done. If you give a checklist to a man, he applies his own egotistical ideas and adds a bit, and without telling you he reckons something else won't work, so he takes it off, so you do not get what you asked for. And it's too late to do about it, but Margaret was very good at absolutely doing what we'd agreed should be done. So I insisted that I took my own personal assistant with me to Lotus, which put a few noses out, and but eventually it was agreed. So Margaret came and joined me as secretary stroke sales promotion. Because at Lotus, in those days, a good example would be this. It was the ladies' toilet rumour machine. One year I got my girls together and I said, look, I'll give you, you can each have a day off to do your Christmas shopping, but don't tell anybody else. Just tell my secretary what day you're going to be off. 10 minutes later, internal phone call, could you come down to the managing director's office, Fred Bushell, what's all this about you giving your girls a day off? One girl called Mary Wells had walked into the toilet and said, my boss is better than your boss, he's giving us all a day off. But the senior secretaries would if one boss or one director started to do a report or a suggestion or something, one secretary would go into the toilet and tell other people's secretaries what her boss was planning. So I didn't want any of this, because I went back on the basis it was man the lifeboat and enlist anybody you need. It was as simple as that. So I took over my old desk, put a sign on it that said, does it sell cars? So anyone who came to see me and said, you used to be good at this, can you help organise the Christmas party? I'll just point to the sign and say, no, I am here to sell cars. The company in those days, and the whole of Britain, we were in an energy saving crisis, so all lights had to be out by 5 o'clock. Drinking in the office on naked flames was absolutely an instant sacking job. So I asked Margaret to go out and get 3 2-litre bottles of white and 2 2-litre bottles of red wine, lots of crisps and some candles. So at 5:30 we lit the candles, I invited people not just from the sales department, but from people from the workshops, because there's more good ideas on the workshop floor than there are in the boardroom, and they're fresh and they're very interesting. We had at that time about 150 unsold Lotus Cars, 50 salmon pink Esprits with tartan interiors,
Big move.
50, was it?
They were orange.
Orange, sorry. 50 basic white, what we call the Eclat, and we're selling over here as a Sprint. And a few elites, some of them been brought back from Saudi Arabia because they couldn't sell. So I was having this meeting and saying, right, how are we going to get rid of these cars? and the ideas were good. And the first thing we realised was any idea that a rich Arab, because rich Arabs were in fashion in those days, you could sell anything, any idea that a rich Arab was going to turn up, or we could style as a job lot. Because if you sell 100 cars on discount, you just prejudice the next 400 new ones. So I got agreement, which made me, I told them, that we were going to set out to sell these cars one by one at full price, full ex-factory price. We were not going to discount them, we were not going to let the dealers think we had a distress situation. In fact, we had a very distressed situation down here and there. And I immediately got hold of Ron Richardson, no, he'd come back. I got hold of the export guy, and I said, I want you to resurrect a mistake that Colin Chapman made. I had what I call my Mickey Mouse markets. Now, Hong Kong, Singapore, Cyprus, Gibraltar, all little places, all around the world, don't add up to much if they take 5 cars a year each. But add them all up together, and suddenly it's a month's production. So I sent this guy off around the world to reopen all our Mickey Mouse markets, and he came back with 50 orders for new cars. That was a good start. Then I sat down with Ollie Winterbottom, the stylist, the guy who comes and goes from Lotus every 5 minutes. He goes down the pub, has too much to drink, they sack him. Then they realise they bring him back. A very talented development designer. I sat down with Ollie and said, Ollie, these 50 white eclairs that we've got here, I want to relaunch them as using the decals that we use in America, Sprint. So let's put some sexy wheels on, put a black line over the roof, Union Jack on the back, Sprint decals all over the car, and relaunch it. And no one's told the customers about the new D-cam or E-cam, whatever it was, so we can launch it with the E-cam. Because a Lotus dealer's contract in the UK says he will take 2 of every new model. So 25 dealers, 2 cars, that's that one, that's it. So we have now sold 2/3 of our surplus stock, and we couldn't afford to employ expensive advertising people to do our ads. So next thing we did was to work out who had bought these cars previously, and we came across, by sheer luck, the designer and developer, the head of the design team, who designed the Hawker Harrier, our vertical takeoff aircraft that he got an Elite. And we did some more research, sent some people out, and we discovered that most of the people who bought an Elite or an Eclair or an Esprit were in the high-tech business. They were in computers, they were in electronics, they were small businesses. Mum probably still made the tea, Dad may even drove the van. So John Allen, this highly talented guy, we toured the country, Margaret did most of them, and went off to dealers for an evening where we invited all the high-tech people to come and meet John Allen, the designer of the Harrier jump jet. And if you're anything to do with technology, to listen to how a man made a supersonic fighter go up and then forward, or in the war against the Argentinians, stop and go backwards, that does fall a missile, by the way. So we really addressed this. We then found that a lot of these people in the construction industry. So we started running ads in conjunction with road tests in construction magazines. Because we couldn't afford artwork, I took a picture of a Lotus Car, and we stuck it on a picture from an Italian magazine, so they'd never find out, of earth-moving equipment and cranes on a building site. And ran that all over, I think it was called Constructive Thinking. And it was small ads like that. But we got rid of all these cars. We got rid of the cars, we got back into profit. It was a pleasure to do it, because I had a mandate to do whatever I liked.